Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Phenomenon, a Paranormal Podcast. I am Christina.
I'm Allie.
I'm Anthony.
And as usual, we're going to talk about all things weird and strange and paranormally. It's the word that I think we have coined.
Yeah. Hashtag paranormally.
Yeah, hashtag paranormally. So today we're going to do something a little different. It's going to be a pretty laid back episode because we're going to talk about myths in the paranormal field. Things that, are pretty common that you might see when you come across paranormal television or TikTok or whatever,
Right.
That people might just assume is true.
Yeah.
But maybe isn't so true.
Yeah.
We noticed that there's a trend that, some paranormal shows, especially certain ones, we won't call out anyone, but they tend to make the paranormal seem like something super scary and super serious.
Right.
But what we want to do today is not only talk about some of those myths, but we kind of want to bring the fun back to the paranormal, because I think that's what drew us into the paranormal. It's kind of fun to go exploring and to look into the strange and the unknown,
Right.
I think that's something that a lot of viewers probably don't realize, is the paranormal can be quite fun.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're going to get me going on it already. So I'm going to put a pin in it for a second, because we wanted to start out today's episode by doing something a little more fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do a new game that we're going to not only do today, we're going to do this periodically, but it's called Believe or Don't Believe.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go around, we're going to ask each of us if we believe or don't believe in a certain paranormal topic or situation or thing. And I'm hoping our producer Ray is going to play along with us.
Sure will.
So Allie, do you want to start us off on the first thing? Oh, Anthony has it.
I have a list here, so I'll say it, and then everyone can just kind of go around and say whether they believe or don't believe.
All right.
The way we'll frame it is, if you believe, you go, I do believe. If you don't believe, you say, I don't believe.
All right.
All right?
There we go.
Here is believe or don't believe. First, portals.
Portals. Okay.
I'll start. I do believe in portals. Maybe not the kind you see on sci-fi shows, where a Stargate, where you physically travel through the portal. But I think it's more of an energy kind of thing.
Yeah.
When we do Estes method sessions all the time, we always talk about how we do tones. And the spirits we're interacting with seem to say that a door is opening of some sort, or a portal.
Right.
We even, yesterday, when we did a session, got vortex
Right.
on the session. So I do believe they exist. Maybe not exactly the way we think of it in sci-fi shows, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Piggyback off you, I mean, I kind of have a similar belief, so I do believe.
Yeah.
However, I don't know if... Isn't there a thing where, with mirrors?
Yes.
I'm not so sure about that one, where, if there's a mirror...
This is very popular on YouTube, too. And again, not to discredit any YouTube paranormal, I think it's cool to see their enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But it's a very old legend that if you face two mirrors, especially together, if you're in a room full of mirrors, you're very, not good.
you're screwed.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know if we want to go there, but you're screwed.
So adorable.
If you face two mirrors or more together, it's supposed to open up a vortex, and the biggest one is a vortex to hell, a portal to hell.
Everything's always to hell. That's where I was going to go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
are you...
I mean, that one I don't believe on.
Right.
It's more like you said, when we do SCs and you hear doors opening, and it's is that the portal that you're coming through to talk to us,
I mean, that's just it for me. When we hear portals in the paranormal a lot, like you just said, it's always a portal to hell.
Yeah.
And it's I think that just kind of plays into the whole, everything paranormal is scary, scenario. So, to me, do I believe that a portal could exist? Kind of in the same sense that you were saying, maybe opening that window or door of communication.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
So Ray, what about you?
I'd like to say portals do exist too. Every time I think of portals, I think of this Adventure Time explanation. I might put it in here, but I think that there's a high possibility that there's different points in this world where we can connect with other points.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. Next, vampires.
Vampires.
I'll say I don't think the Hollywood Dracula, as fun as they are, I don't think those kind of vampires typically exist. I know there are people out there who do self-identify as vampires,
Right.
and I totally respect their communities, and I think that's cool, as long as it's done safely and everything. But as far as Hollywood vampires, no.
Yeah.
Right.
I do think the legend of vampires started somewhere.
Of course.
I always have said that I think that myths and legends always have some sort of basis in reality. Like there's something that inspired someone to come up with the first concept of a vampire.
Yeah.
Right.
What that is exactly, was it a creature that lived, millions of years ago, thousands of years ago, that no longer exists? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it some sort of virus that went around and kind of affected people to become vampire-like? Maybe. I know there are stories of that out there.
Yeah.
But Hollywood vampires, no.
Yeah.
Some sort of ancient thing, possibly.
Okay.
I have a question. If you were to believe in a Hollywood vampire, would it be like the Twilight vampire?
Oh, no.
Or like Interview with the Vampire?
Interview with the Vampire for sure.
Yeah.
I can't handle sparkly, stalkery teenage vampires. Okay.
Why not?
We went and saw that.
Oh, we did. We 100% did. I did not watch the final movie. I can
No,
tell you
we
that
did
much.
not.
It got bad.
Yeah, bad.
It got bad.
I'm going with
Different time.
Gary Oldman and Dracula.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that one.
Yes.
That's what I'm going
If we're
for.
going Hollywood vampire, give me a scary, good
Yeah.
vampire,
Yeah, I'm there too.
I guess
Go ahead.
I should say what I believe.
Yeah, what do you believe?
I am again similar to him. I think there might be like creatures that are similar to what we believe vampirism to be.
Right.
However, are they like a vampire the way we think of them? Probably not.
Yeah.
And it could even be like not a humanoid type vampire.
Right.
It'd be something totally different.
Well, it's kind of like when you're talking about the chupacabra on our cryptid episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what people kind of liken it to.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't believe in the traditional, vampire lore.
Yeah.
I think it was a great story
Oh, yeah.
when it was written, and everyone has piggybacked off it for years since. And hey, give me a good movie, I'm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to Romania and a lot of things that I think at the time scientifically they didn't understand about death and rigor mortis,
Yeah.
different things that the fact that a body can spasm and move after death. I think there were a lot of things that contributed to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm on the I don't believe train.
Ray?
This is a crazy hard question. I don't know. Seems easy in my head, but then I think
I know.
I don't know. Yeah, there could definitely very sanguine people who seem like that's the kind of what I think of vampires is people who are like very suave and like
Yeah.
beautiful and
Yeah.
they kind of are admirable and has that charisma to them. So I don't know, perhaps those genes were passed on to people.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I also have people around me like in the conspiracy theory zone talking
Right.
about
Yeah.
drinking blood and staying young
Right.
forever.
Yeah.
Right.
A little asterisk to it, too, is energy vampires.
Right. That's true.
If you ever watch What We Do in the Shadows, Colin Robinson is very funny. The concept of energy vampires on the show is very funny. But I think we've all probably met a person in our life who kind of comes across as an energy vampire.
You're right. You just reminded me of something. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, just, not necessarily like fangs and drinking blood kind of vampire, but maybe someone who kind of just drains the energy out of you. And then I'll even say another asterisk is, I love Bram Stoker. I love his original book and stuff. And I've read a lot about his inspirations for coming up with it. And he supposedly did encounter something in the castle that was like his family namesake when he was growing up.
Okay.
I don't know if it was technically what he ended up writing about as Dracula or whatever, but he encountered some sort of humanoid-esque creature, and he supposedly was very sick as a child, and this entity saved him, supposedly.
Okay.
And I think it was partly what inspired him to look further into the lore
Right.
of, vampirism and all
Yeah.
that stuff, so.
Well, it's funny. We talked about synchronicities earlier.
Yeah.
But I just actually saw a TikTok this morning where they were interviewing a man, and I think I sent it to you. But he was a Freemason and occultist.
Oh, wow.
Now he's former. But he was saying as you like kind of ascend in the Freemason world,
Right.
you get to a certain level, you have a choice of you can either become a vampire or a werewolf. This is what he said.
Okay.
And he didn't want to be a werewolf. He decided that he would rather be a vampire.
Right.
And that they started giving him these certain herbs that he wouldn't say what they were, so that he would slowly transition. It's not the traditional, oh, someone bites you and all of this,
Yeah.
but that you would transition into being a vampire through these rituals and these herbs.
Okay.
I told you about those Freemasons. I
No,
told you.
we love the Freemasons.
Yeah, don't come after us, Freemasons. We love you.
Freemasons are great.
Maybe we'll send Ray that clip of that TikTok and we can insert that there.
Definitely, I think that's a great
really
idea.
interesting, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a totally different take than I've ever heard
Yeah.
on becoming a vampire.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm on the fence.
Yeah. You
I'll-
never know.
I'm putting my stick on the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a fence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
like it's always sunny.
Like it's always sunny. Absolutely.
All right, so we'll put a stick in that for now, pin in it. How about Bigfoot? I'll say it. I do believe in Bigfoot.
Okay.
Is he necessarily, a flesh and blood that exists here right this second all the time? I don't think so. I've seen video and evidence to suggest that he could be here sometimes physically, or the creature.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a more interdimensional.
I was gonna say you're on the interdimensional train.
That's my kind of view on it. I think that there's a reason why hunters, quote unquote, who go looking for them at Bigfoot all the time, don't ever catch and bring back a Bigfoot corpse of any kind.
Yeah.
Because they're not here all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
how else would these beings survive? It's either interdimensional or they existed millions of years ago, and what we see today are their spirits, their ghosts.
Okay.
Those are my two
That's an interesting
theories
theory.
on what Bigfoot is.
All right. Allie.
I 100% believe,
Okay.
but my biggest thing is we still are discovering things like creatures, insects,
Species.
yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just one we can't nail down,
Right.
and like he said, like whether it's interdimensional or what have you. But I think it would be stupid to say like there's no way
Yeah.
that there could be a Bigfoot or whatever his species really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's all these different types around the world, which we'll talk
Absolutely.
later about.
Right.
It's a whole episode, but
Like,
yeah.
you never know what they really are.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's just what we know.
Right. I do believe.
Yeah.
I was always on the fence with it, but the more that we have seen and different hunters that have gone out there, evidence that has been presented,
Yeah.
I think there's no way that he can't be real.
Yeah.
But again, I'm kind of in the same place. Is it, well, okay, people skeptics, so why haven't we ever found, evidence of a dead Bigfoot somewhere?
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's been a lot of other evidence, which again, we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But maybe it is because it's an interdimensional type of being. And that's what the Native Americans believe
Yeah.
very strongly. In fact, I happen to know a shaman.
You do know Sean.
I know a shaman, and he's out in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, if I read you some of the messages he sent me about the knowledge he has
Yeah.
of big feet,
Yeah.
and
He's like had a whole like conversations
oh yeah,
with several big feet, right? Like a family of
and
big
knows exactly where they live
Yeah.
and congregate.
Come out.
They use the Mojave River as a way of getting around.
Yeah.
He has a whole interactive map of where different herds of them are. And I mean, it's very detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to have him on the show one day.
Okay, if we could get the
But
shaman, that'd be
he's-
awesome.
He's got some information, but they believe that they're like spirit guides. That's how the Native Americans see them. And they're much like what they call the sky people, that, they're interdimensional. So
Yeah.
I think it's very possible that's why someone hasn't brought in a dead Bigfoot and put it on display.
I mean, Native American people were here long before Europeans ever got to this continent, and they probably have a lot more knowledge. Even if they see it differently than we do,
Right.
I think they exist in one form or another.
Right.
People just have different names for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Absolutely. I mean, we've done an episode earlier in the podcast years of the Yucca Man.
Yes.
Oh, you got the Yucca
If
Man.
you guys want to listen to that, that's one of our earliest episodes. The
Yeah.
Yucca Man is very popular on our podcast. So
It's really interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ray, how about you?
Putting Ray on the spot today.
I'd say I mean, I really haven't delved into the world of Bigfoot too much.
Yeah.
Before this conversation, I'd say I don't know. And now after, I'm saying maybe.
When we do our Bigfoot episode, we have some clips to show you. There's one from that Expedition Bigfoot show. This shadowy Bigfoot figure that is caught on camera. It really changes your perspective on.
Yeah. Well, after what you say about portals and all that, like, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It all makes sense to me that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go out and find the Snallygaster. It's probably in a portal as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Very possible.
So,
Very possible.
You got to get lucky.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Ray, speaking of your space shirt, how about aliens?
Oh, yeah.
We'll start with you today with this one.
I think without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think there's intelligent life out there too.
Yeah.
I don't know about how many, I don't know if it's ever going to be possible to meet them. I'm sure it will be if portals do exist. But
Yeah.
I think I think there has to be.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I feel the same way. I think it makes no sense to think that we are the only intelligent life in the entire cosmos
Right.
to ever exist. How many intelligent life forms have the knowledge to get to our planet right now? I can't say for sure. I know that there are definitely UFO sightings and stuff.
Yeah.
But we also know that there's a concept called the ultra-terrestrials, which aren't from our universe. They're from another universe, and they come through portals. So I think that maybe some of the UFOs that we've seen over the years are not necessarily from our universe. They're intelligent life from another universe. That's how they got here, not through space travel from our universe.
Right.
I don't know if we can fully say that we haven't had a visitor though, because life could have evolved quite differently on another world. They could be evolved faster than we ever did.
Yeah.
Because we're not the center of the universe, as much as we'd like to believe we are.
Yeah.
So I think aliens exist. What about you?
I believe that aliens exist. I mean, my thing is, first of all, I'm just saying.
Just say.
The government hides a lot of stuff in regards to this.
We love the government.
And the podcast
And the Freemasons. And there happen to be a lot of Freemasons in government. That's cool.
We're good with it. But there's some things that we probably will never know, much like, other things. Just because they're going to hide certain things from us because it might freak us out. But I think there's more out there than we realize. And I even think there's always the possibility, like when you think of the Men in Black and things, like what if there's humanoid-looking aliens that live amongst us? Like, how would we know?
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You just never know.
Aliens, and we'll discuss it later because that's part of our episode today, but aliens don't necessarily have to be little green men, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, they could look just like us because, they're intelligent life and they look exactly like us. So,
Yeah.
Mom?
I do believe.
Yeah.
I've always kind of believed, but I think more so as we've gotten into this, it's sort of solidified that for me.
Yeah.
Because I do think that there is enough, there have been enough incidents out there reported that I'd be hard pressed to say, well, it's all just a coincidence. It's all just a fluke.
Yeah.
Certain big ones, like when we talked about Betty and Barney Hill on our UFO episode, we talked about Travis Walton, the fire in the sky. Those are some of the big ones. But I think there are, if you look at MUFON, the UFO reporting site, all these people that are seeing these things in the sky, and now with the invent of the internet and TikTok and things where you can show these things immediately to the world.
Yeah.
It's not just, like with the Battle LA that we talked about, where it's one newspaper with a little artist rendering of something someone said they saw. These are actually like, a lot of times even live.
Yeah.
It's not as easy to like explain away or cover
Exactly.
up. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I do believe.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
And if I may, if anybody hasn't seen the Betty and Barney Hill episode, or even just the audio, go do yourself a favor and watch it. You won't sleep for days.
Yeah.
You might start crying.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's true. It's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I really love that episode.
It is so convincing and just chilling.
Oh, yeah.
Chilling.
And we just
it.
hit the tip of the iceberg with that episode too. I mean, we could probably do so many episodes on those.
Yeah.
I think, obviously the Travis Walton story has always stuck with me because just the thought of how that all played out, just so terrifying. But the Betty and Barney Hill, like he said, I mean, if you listen to the tapes, they will definitely keep you up at night.
Oh, 100%.
It makes it hard to believe that they would go through all the trouble making that up. I mean, it's not only just chilling, but it's also emotional because of everything they went through in their life because of it,
Yeah.
I mean,
who signs up for that?
Yeah.
Nobody.
All
right.
Demons.
Oh, God.
We talk about a lot here.
Here we go.
And we respect all belief systems. I want to say that outright. Everyone's entitled to their belief, and we respect your belief system. We personally are not religious, so when we go into paranormal investigations, we don't look at paranormal activity as possibly being demonic. I don't think biblical demons exist. Daemons, however, are very ancient. They've been in cultures throughout the world, and not just Christianity or Judaism or Islam, but even the Greeks and the Egyptians had their own version of daemons.
Right.
I think that there are non-human energies and spirits out there, but associating the concept of evil to them, I think is a very human trait.
Yeah.
I think we invented good and evil. So any energy out there that we do have interactions with that aren't necessarily human, I don't think we can associate them as, they're evil, they're coming to drag us to hell or kill us or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a very human concept.
Right.
So demons, no. Daemons, possibly.
Okay.
So
it's really hard to follow that up because I can't really add that much to it. But I don't believe in the biblical demons either. So basically, like whatever he just said, that's what I think.
Yeah, and I don't want to dive into it too far because it's part of what we're going to talk about in the rest of the episode. So I'm just going to give it a thumbs down.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I think demons are really cool. I don't know if they're real. I'm a big fan of metal music, so
Yes, us too.
Us too. So I'm not religious either. So,
Okay.
But I was raised Christian, so I don't know. I think there could be some truths in how they exist and all that, but I also think they probably exist in a lot of different ways than what Christianity makes them out to be.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And demonic imagery, especially in metal and whatnot, can be very cool.
And also
visually,
Japanese different are very different from
Oh yes.
Western demons.
Yeah.
Those are really cool.
Yeah.
The imagery and everything, really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a technique now. The 3 a.m. witching hour in paranormal investigations.
Okay.
Anyone who watches YouTube videos knows that this always comes up during the investigation at some point because a lot of investigations are overnight investigations.
We'll talk about that too.
And we'll talk about that more. But there's this concept called the witching hour, which is from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. And the concept is that this is the highest level of demonic activity, portals to hell, evil spirits, even witches at some point get involved because it's the witching hour. They believe this is the highest level of activity you can get is at 3 a.m. I don't know if I necessarily believe that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about my feelings on demons and everything, and witches. I'm all for witches. I love talk about witchcraft and stuff. The actual concept of witchcraft, though, not what you see in movies.
Right.
Flying on brooms and stuff like that. No.
Although I would totally get on a broom.
Oh, that would
if I
be
could
really
fly
cool.
around.
Cool, I think.
Man, that would be awesome.
Yeah. But the 3 a.m. witching hour, I think paranormal activity can happen anytime.
Yeah.
So I don't think it necessarily is stronger at 3 a.m. I think that's just kind of a legend that kind of gathers strength.
I don't believe it either, and similarly, it literally could happen at any time of the day. I mean, we've done investigating during the day and stuff happens,
Right.
And at the graveyard we caught 2 EVPs.
Exactly.
So it really could happen anywhere at any time.
Join our Patreon, by the way, because we do have a video there at the graveyard where we just did an investigation.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I don't really necessarily believe in it myself.
Okay. Well, I don't believe in it with one caveat, okay, which I will explain. We've talked about this before in thought form hauntings. Okay. So for me, if the people going in are big believers in the witching hour theory and they are focusing all their energy at the 3 o'clock mark that all this bad stuff's going to start happening, are they ramping up the energy to where things start happening more?
That's true.
I think that could be the only thing that would make me say, okay, does more stuff happen during this hour? Well, maybe, but why?
Yeah.
Right.
Is it because everything evil just waits in the woodwork and when that 3 o'clock hits, they all run out? No.
Yeah.
Party time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Demon party, let's go. But no, I don't think that's the case, but I think that maybe there could be something to the energy level amping up if people believe it.
Yeah.
So
I'm on board with you guys, but I do want to think about, well, first off, do demons account for daylight savings? We don't know. Also, I was thinking though, like the concept of portals and like giant celestial bodies out in the cosmos, is there a chance that like with all the light wrapping around the earth, perhaps like 3 a.m. is when you get the least amount of light? Maybe that could be a portal opener or something?
Maybe.
that's an idea.
Good thought.
That's what I'm trying to reason it with.
Yeah.
But
No, I agree. That's a possibility.
Good idea.
So one thing I always say is that like we don't know everything.
No.
So I'm always open to possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like this episode we're doing today is about debunking certain myths.
Yeah.
I think it's important to also say, okay, we're not just going to believe everything everyone says because it's out there. Have an open mind.
Yeah. I like the tagline from the X-Files. I grew up on the X-Files. I love the X-Files. I want to believe.
Of course.
I think that's a way of going about paranormal investigating as a whole is I want to believe, but you always leave the room for investigating and kind of debunking.
Right.
Because when you debunk and you can't debunk something, I think that makes it even more exciting.
Yeah.
Personally.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
It's like the original Ghost Hunters motto used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not anymore. I'm just saying that in the original TAPS Ghost Hunters show, it was always about debunking first.
Yes.
Right.
So that if you can't debunk it, then it's a haunting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I like that.
Concept might not be there anymore. I didn't say that.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Two more items. And
Okay.
we'll move on to our topic today. Real quick. Dowsing rods. I'll say that for the most
Short answer, because you could get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
For most of my life, I'll say I have not believed. There's been a couple of recent incidences because I got dowsing rods in recent years where the movement on them is a little strange to me. And they kind of coincided with our Estes method sessions that we were doing. So I think the possibility is there. But I don't think that it's always on point because you have to take into factor how people are holding it.
Right.
Is it being manipulated in any way naturally, like with electromagnetic energy of some sort? I don't know.
Yeah.
You?
I'm on the fence. I can't really say one way or another. I haven't had a lot of personal experience with it either, so maybe. Like he's saying though, there's factors into it, like depending on how you're holding them. Even if you move a little bit, like you just don't know. If it's fact or fiction.
Fact or fate. No, different show. No, for me, I never used to believe either.
Yeah.
And actually, when we got Anthony the dowsing rods, we almost did it as a joke because it was always such a non-believer in them.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, we're gonna give him some dowsing rods. But I've used them. And now I'm really more on the right side of the fence.
Yeah.
But, how you hold them is important.
Yeah.
For instance, Anthony is 6'5". He's got big hands. When you hold them, the way they're set up, there are like handles.
Yeah.
And then the rods kind of come at a right angle and stick down into the handle, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So they have the freedom of movement because there's these holes that are in the handle, so they can move of their own volition,
Yeah.
should they choose to, I guess. But if you have bigger hands and you're holding the handles, you're also going to be touching the rods.
Yeah.
So it does kind of matter, like how you're holding those handles and whether or not there's that freedom of movement. Skeptics will say that muscle memory plays into it.
Yeah.
But being someone who was not a believer and expecting zero to happen and then asking specific questions, and for me having very stark, sharp movements of the rods on their own, it would have taken me to literally go like this to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I was very, very still. It took me by surprise, to be honest, just like how stark these movements were in response to the questions being asked. And if you haven't ever seen them being used, you're asking a question, well, if this and this is true, can you make the rods cross? And they cross real sharply.
Yeah.
Can you uncross them? And they uncross. Can you make them point toward where you're standing in the room? And both will point in a certain direction.
Yeah.
That really kind of took me by surprise that it did happen so fluidly. And I do wonder too if it's a little bit like when we do the Estes method and Allie is like a beacon, man, everyone comes and wants to talk to her, ask for her by name. But if Anthony and I do it, it might not be as, forward like that. And I wonder if, certain people might have more of the electromagnetic energy in themselves to where those work better. Does that make sense? Because like I've done it and they work like crazy. They've done it and maybe not so much. I mean, I don't know.
You never know.
I'm still like, I'm in the middle, but a little bit to the right of the fence. What about you, Ray?
I actually had to look it up real quick because I didn't really know what they were. And but your explanation of it seems really cool. I guess I can't really come up with a answer because I've never seen it. But I have homework to do.
We'll have to bring them into the studio next time so
see if how you can use them.
I'll have to try.
We're all for making Ray try things.
I'm the guinea pig.
We love it though.
Final thing is haunted objects, and we've talked about this before on the podcast. I do believe that objects could hold energy. Do I necessarily believe dolls are possessed by demons or evil entities of some sort? Not necessarily. Because I think, like I told you before, evil is a human concept. So if anything, if a person is attached to an object of some sort, if they were bad in life, they probably are still bad in the afterlife. Not everyone changes just because they pass on.
Right.
So, and we've had interactions with people like that before. Very not nice people. They weren't nice in life, but doesn't mean that happens for everyone. So if you get a doll and there's energy around it, if you're feeling like a tapping on your shoulder or if you hear a knock on the door, that doesn't mean something evil is nearby.
Right.
Just means that maybe some energy got picked up along the way, especially if someone really beloved that item in life,
Yeah.
So
I do believe that energy can, be attached to an object, but much like how I believe spirits can go anywhere.
Right.
Please, if there's something like that attached to an object, I don't know if they necessarily stay with that object forever.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
I would agree. I think that's kind of how I look at it. That I do believe that if something especially was really important to a person when they were alive, well, there's personal experience here that comes into play for me. I think that if something was really important to that person when they were alive, that, if anything of that person is kind of lingering behind after they pass, would they maybe gravitate more toward an object that they're familiar with? Can you leave an imprint on something? Much like, you look at some of these old buildings that, there's, they say things can kind of ingrain into the wood. Or things that are made up of certain minerals. As
like a fingerprint on the environment.
Right, exactly. I do think that we can leave a fingerprint. So, I mean, one of the things we were going to talk about today, when it comes to like these myths and haunted dolls was one of them. So I'm not going to get too far into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's possible.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Ray, final question.
I've never encountered any myself, but I'm sure they're out there. I just have to believe in that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
if you guys have any that you have experience with and you want us to kind of test it out or add it to our collection, make sure you hit us, DM us, or email us, and we'll be happy to take it off your hands and even feature it here on the show.
We'll do experiments with it and test it out for you.
Yeah. So, we're always willing to check things out. So,
All right.
that was Believe or Don't Believe. And this is the first of many editions of it. So, I'm sure we'll have more concepts to come up with in the future. And when we have guests on the show, we'll be playing the game with them as well. So,
All right.
thank you for our first edition. Before we get into the next segment, if you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, comment on this episode, share the episode, hit the bell button so you get notified when new episodes go up. But yeah, check us out. And then you can also follow us on Patreon. And if you want a discount on our shop, definitely subscribe to Patreon. You get an exclusive 15% off discount. So
Absolutely. And as Anthony mentioned on our Patreon, we recently did a little excursion to a local graveyard. And we will maybe add a link to part of that investigation.
Yeah.
We did a couple different techniques there, and one of them Allie has on her YouTube channel already.
Yeah.
And it's our Spirit Talker section of our investigation, which we got some EVPs that came up on, which are really interesting.
yeah, there was one EVP that we had to keep going back and listening to over and over
Yeah,
again. It was really trippy.
Yeah, it was very trippy. I think Ray will really like that one.
Yeah.
And, and then, but we also did an Estes method session there at the cemetery, and that is going to be only available on our Patreon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So subscribe to the Patreon because you
definitely.
won't want to miss this. Some interesting stuff came up.
It's going to be the first of many graveyard sessions, I think, because that was a lot of fun.
Images that came along with that session that we'll share too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we're gonna move along because we're already digging into our episode here because we love talking about this stuff. But this is stuff that we're gonna try and dispel maybe the myths surrounding. And I just wanted to kind of start it off with talking about something that you see a lot of time on paranormal shows.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is that ghosts only come out at night.
Yes.
Or the fact that you can only investigate ghosts or hauntings at night.
Yeah.
This is not true.
No.
We know this obviously from personal experience. We have done investigations during the brightness of day. The way we believe is in energy
Yeah.
after we pass. And that's how we communicate, is we're communicating with energy that's left behind of loved ones or people we don't even know, because it's not a controlled situation.
Yeah.
It's not you only go to this location and you're only going to be talking to spirits that are affiliated with this location. It's all one big collective consciousness that is out there, which is why when we do sessions, even in our own home, even though we may want to talk to our deceased loved ones, we're getting people come in that we have no knowledge of or where they're from, and they'll sometimes say where they're from, and it's nowhere near where we are. And
sometimes they passed a week ago. Sometimes they passed like 300 years ago.
Yeah.
You just never know who's going to show up. So
the big thing about seeing the investigations done at night, it's scarier, right? It's scarier. Paranormal television is going to really reel people in because people like to be scared.
Yeah.
Amps up the tension.
Yeah, of course. I like to be scared. I am a horror movie fanatic.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I had COVID in 2020 and I was laid up for 2 weeks, I must have watched every horror movie that was streaming online. That's just
Fell asleep a lot.
and fell asleep during a lot of them.
Watched them.
Not sponsored, but Tubi was used a lot.
A lot.
Tubi, if you want to sponsor us, go ahead.
Hashtag Tubi.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love that stuff. So, a lot of people do, and you're intrigued to watch these shows because it's spooky.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't really need to wait till it's nighttime or the witching hour to investigate these things. And they're always kind of around us.
Yeah.
You just got to know where to look, and it's not about when.
Pay attention to your guys' environment, because a lot of things will happen during the day you don't always realize it's paranormal. until you like really take the time to like look into it, was this an animal, was this some sort of thing happening outside, or was this something inside that shouldn't be happening?
From a practical perspective, there's a reason more people want to investigate at night, and that's because if you're investigating like buildings or anywhere near a business or near a street, all the traffic noise and people noise is going to be to a minimum if it's late night after hours. So that's really, from a practical perspective, the biggest reason to do that. But it's not because that's the only time that they're there. So that's the first one that I was going to mention.
I have one.
You have one?
Talk about.
Go for it.
Okay. So the fact that people think ghosts only are in like creepy old haunted houses.
Yes, old Victorian homes.
Victorian homes, or basically they had to have been there a long time for there to be ghosts, right?
Right.
But I think like even when they break new ground and build a new house, there could still be activity in there.
Absolutely.
And there's even the fact someone doesn't have to have died there.
Right.
For there to be activity, you know what I mean?
That's a big one,
Yeah, it really can be, like we talked about, like people could show up at our sessions who don't even live where we live.
Right.
So I think it's about energy.
Yeah.
And it's about who wants to make that contact with you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like the oldest, creepiest house in the world.
Yeah.
For there to be activity. And it doesn't even have to be a home. It could be jails, asylums.
Absolutely.
A whole slew, like a library, even, a forest or whatever. Like there could be activity anywhere.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
Even our home, when we do sessions, our house was built, in the 90s?
Yeah.
It's not like a 300-year-old home. It wasn't built in colonial times.
Yeah.
But, you can take into effect that the land could have energy stored in it. The land, if it's not even 300 years, it could be thousands of years old.
Yeah.
With the Native American people who were here before,
Well, we've talked about this before on other episodes. We're in an area that was literally the birthplace of our country.
Yeah.
And there were wars fought here. There was a lot of death here. There were a lot of negative situations here even.
Yeah.
This was the very first mine ever built in the country, was founded here in our area.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of mining death.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of firsts here. There's a lot of history here. I think history is an energy of its own.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's one I like to talk about is the concept that skeptics and believers can't ever get along.
Okay.
There seems to, and when you talk about the paranormal, there's always this divide between believers and non-believers. But I've seen some great teams who have both on the team.
Right.
I think it's more about a person's willingness to be open to possibility. I've seen skeptics who are willing to accept evidence that's presented to them. And I've seen believers who have seen evidence against what they thought was happening.
Yeah.
I think it's about, people's ability to open up to something other than what they know.
Yeah.
And this isn't just believers and skeptics either. We've seen it talked about before.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There's a lot of crossover between people who investigate just spirits and ghosts, alien investigators, UFO investigators, and cryptids, Bigfoot investigators. We see a lot of overlap on all of those things, especially we always talk about this, the Mothman case.
Right.
It was a very prominent example of this. There was stuff happening all at the same time over there.
Right.
In a very short amount of time, like a year maybe. And it was not just one thing or the other. It was everything happening all at once.
Right.
But one of the things that you see happen a lot is, UFO investigators won't want to give up any ground that a cryptid could be the explanation for what they're seeing, or vice versa, or that ghosts are happening. It's just about a willingness to open yourself up and say, none of it could exist, or it could all exist.
Right.
It's a very situational thing, but I like the possibility of everything being possible.
Yeah.
Not one thing or the other. Maybe both can exist at the same time.
Right.
So
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to talk about was, let's see. I think the fact that we talked about haunted dolls briefly, something that, only my family really knows, but I like to refurbish old dolls.
Yeah.
You know, I sort of got into doing that and found it to be sort of therapeutic.
Yeah.
I would resell them after I refurbished them. I find, you know, an old one that looked like someone threw it in the trash
Yeah.
and kind of bring it back to life. So I have an affinity for them.
Yeah.
But because of certain things in the paranormal field, if anyone sees a doll, it's got to be a haunted doll, right?
Yeah.
You know, they're all haunted. There are people who actually have a serious fear of dolls
Yeah.
because of certain things in the paranormal field. And those things being like Annabelle, of course, if you've ever heard of Annabelle the doll, based, you know, the Conjuring movies and Annabelle herself having her own movies.
Right.
That comes from Ed and Lorraine Warren,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I'm not going to talk about too much.
Blow past.
Yeah, we're just going to blow past that.
We'll say the movies themselves are entertaining. Like
Yes.
James Wan as a director, very entertaining. He has a great eye for horror. Patrick Wilson.
Right.
But as much as we love the movies and they're very entertaining, I don't think people should take them as stone cold fact. In other words, we'll get into the details of it, but feel free to look up Ed and Lorraine Warren and some of the issues that are associated with that.
Right.
Enjoy the movies for what they are, but don't take them to heart and say that's happening in my home too.
Right. Exactly.
So,
I mean, obviously the actual Annabelle doll was nothing like the one from the movies.
no. It's a Raggedy Ann doll, right?
It's a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things that have come out after the fact kind of point to the fact that this was not at all true. The things that were attached to this doll per se.
Yeah.
The fact that she is still kept in a locked glass case, I think is a very cinematic.
It's a bit much.
It's a bit much, but you know. So at any rate, between her and then you've got Robert the doll, which I can't sit here and say I know enough about Robert the doll to say that that's fake.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
I can't say that.
Energy that could be associated with them could at this point be thought form.
Right.
Because of how prominent they are.
That's where I was going to say. Yeah, it's, you know, it's kind of like, you know, other things we've talked about, like the Dybbuk box. It's if enough people believe in something, is that generating this activity to happen?
Yeah.
I think there's also a doll in Zach Baggins' museum that's supposed to, you know, be, you know, that's why people have this thought that, you know, if you see some old creepy Victorian doll, you're going to die.
Well, I mean,
basically.
And we've heard reports from people who went to that museum and they tell you don't look her in the eyes.
Right.
Because otherwise she'll attach to you and she'll hurt you or something like that. That's building up the fear. That's what that whole building and museum is all about, is building up the fear.
They do the same with Robert the doll. Like you have to ask his permission to take a picture and all this stuff, or, you know, he's going to come home with you. Yeah, I don't think he did. I really don't.
Just wondering.
But, you know, to say, like we talked about before, if there was something like a doll that was important to someone or, you know, important enough to it being around, you know, could some energy imprint on that. I can't say that it can't.
Yeah.
You know, but are all dolls haunted? No, people. Yeah. All dolls are not haunted.
I will say I don't like dolls, but it's mostly because of Chucky. Because that terrified me as a kid.
That's true.
But I don't dislike all dolls. It's mostly the weird ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
They look a little funky. I'm out.
Kind of like the gnomes, but now you have Malcolm the gnome.
Yes, we have Malcolm. He's our mascot.
That's right. Zoom in on Malcolm if you can. So
what's his name, Melissa?
Malcolm Wigginbottoms. He came
Wigginbottoms.
up with the last
Wigginbottoms.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now,
official mascot of Phenomenon Paranormal Guys.
That's right. And
it was made by our producer, Ray.
Yeah.
That's right. So we love Malcolm.
Yes.
He is our official mascot now.
Yes.
So that's what I had to say about dolls.
All right.
Anyone else?
Do you have anything?
I had something written down. Hold on.
I mean, there's only one other thing I can think of.
Well, you can go first.
Okay. Zombies.
Oh, zombies.
People believe that zombies are not only modern, but very supernatural. Well, the term zombie has been in use for well over a century. And before 1968 applied to seemingly soulless slaves created by Haitian voodoo magic.
Okay.
It was only after 1968 when George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead was released that term was forever changed. Modern zombies are the result of an unexplained contagion but are not supernatural. According to zombie expert Matt I can't pronounce his last name, Moak, I think, of the Zombie Research Society. The modern zombie is a relentlessly aggressive, reanimated human corpse given by a biological infection.
Right.
So, supernatural vampires, mummies, Nordic draugrs, and all revenants need not apply for brunch with this bunch. Part of this is according to the link. We'll send a link here so you can read all of these.
Yeah.
So that's modern zombies. But we've all done research and we've seen that, zombies have been around for quite a long time and they've existed in many different cultures. Yeah. And until recently, like this article points out, they were all very supernatural based. There was a lot of energy and spiritual connection to the concept of a zombie or animated figure.
Right.
We've even seen some cultures that when they reanimate, they're not looking to chomp on your brain or anything like that. They actually come back to life and just come back to their family. There are some cultures who, to this day, when a beloved one passes on, they preserve the body.
Yes.
And they actually keep the body in the home, in their room that they used to live in. Mm-hmm. And they go and they talk to them every single day.
Yeah.
It's
we
part
need
of
to
their
insert
culture.
some footage or pictures of that because they bring them out once a year on their, I don't know if it's on their death day or their birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, this is very specifically cultural to certain people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But again, we respect all cultures here. And I think it's very fascinating because, not only does it keep them alive in their culture, but the concept that they could still be there and their energy could still be there even if the body's not technically moving.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting concept and outlook on death itself. I think. So
I agree. Well, there was a famous case in Haiti, like you mentioned, of somebody who they, had buried, 2 weeks prior that came walking into town.
Yeah.
Right.
That's documented. So, I mean, that's...
Absolutely.
I think that concept of zombie is a lot different than what you see in the movies. I mean,
Of course,
obviously, loved Dawn of the Dead.
Kind of like the Hollywood version of vampires. There's the Hollywood version of zombies now.
Yeah.
Which is very different.
I wonder if La Pascualita kind of entered
Yes.
the
That's what I
zombie
was
zone.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shout out to our Latin American episode. But
That's right. That one really, obviously when we did it, I expressed how much that story really stuck with me. And I think it stuck with Ray too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those fingers are real. I don't care what anyone else says.
Right?
I'm showing it to everybody. There's a real person in that man.
Yeah, those are real person's hands. There's no denying that, right?
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, I think if in fact the story is what it was, and it's because the shop owner didn't want to not have their daughter around. That could be a modern version of a zombie. She may not be up and walking around, but if you believe certain parts of the lore, she may go dancing with a certain someone at night. Right?
Right.
And her eyes move according to certain people or what have you. I mean, who knows? I mean, our level of what we think of zombies is so different now that maybe a zombie is just that.
Right. Right.
So yeah, good catch, Ray. I like that. No.
I have one more.
Yeah, go for it.
But we have to wrap up pretty soon.
Yeah.
So don't get talking too much. Okay.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm looking at you because I know you're going to get excited
I
about
don't know.
Alien.
We can go over.
Yeah.
Little green men in flying saucers. Not totally what they really are.
Right.
I mean, there could be a variety, of course, of what they look like.
Yeah.
Typically, they're the gray men, right?
Exactly.
And even the flying saucer thing, there's been different shapes of the UFOs we see and have sightings of.
I love the cigar ones that are more modern.
Yeah.
Cigar ones are really interesting to me.
So obviously not all of them
Yeah.
are going to be little flying saucers or little green men or
anyone,
have a specific head or whatever.
Yeah. You mentioned the Travis Walton thing earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
If you haven't looked it up, we might do an episode in the future, but if anyone ever saw Fire in the Sky, the film that is based on his story, they used the description of the aliens he encountered in the film. And these aliens are very creepy looking. They are not like the grays that you are most likely thinking of.
Yeah.
Humanoid, but very almost like medieval, grotesque kind of versions of a humanoid that you would see.
Right.
Almost looks like a medieval troll or something like that.
Yeah.
Just very creepy looking. But I think it's different. I mean,
I don't know where the green even came into play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's Marvin the Martian type thing.
Yeah.
I remember one of the earliest forms of that saying that came from the Hopkinsville Kelly Goblins.
That's true.
It's a very famous case in Kentucky where a family was attacked by little green men who literally were glowing. And if you ever decide to watch the Hellier case, our favorite case that we really got into, that was the earliest sighting of goblins in Kentucky. And this family had shotguns and were shooting out of their home at these things, attacking their home. They became a media sensation. The rumor was that they all came from the mines that were abandoned behind their house. They found footprints in the slurry stuff that were coming out of the mines. And they had like 3-toed imprints. It was very strange.
Right.
But because they glowed and were green, I think that was one of the earliest iterations of little green men.
Right, that's true.
That came about.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of Hellier, shout out to Alan Greenfield.
Yes. Since our last recording, one of our favorite people on the Hellier case was Alan Greenfield. He kind of got the whole thing started with Terry R. Reist. His interview years ago with him.
He was an author.
He's an author. He's a very famous paranormal investigator. He was investigating at the same time as John Keel and Gray Barker.
During the Mothman days.
I had written an article about 3 years ago on the Hellier case, and he recently retweeted it and shared it and got the whole conversation started all over again.
And followed our podcast.
Alan, obviously, we'd love to have you on the podcast if you ever
come on, Alan. Let's talk about synchronicities.
Yeah, love to hear you speak, man. But thank you for the shout out. That was a really cool thing that happened over the last couple of weeks. So.
Yeah.
Yep. Hashtag Alan Greenfield.
Yes.
So I think we need to wrap, but it's been a fun episode.
Yeah, it was really fun.
I love talking about all this stuff, and I like hearing Ray's viewpoints on it.
Yeah.
And we're gonna bring in some dowsing rods real soon.
Yes.
For Ray to try out. I mean, what else can we strap Ray into at this point?
You gotta think of something.
I'll do anything.
All right.
We gotta do the Gansfield with you, man.
Yeah, we
strap
really
some
need
ping
to.
pong balls to your eyes. And...
Maybe we'll have one episode where we just try out as much as we can on Ray.
Yes.
Right, poor Ray.
In Hollywood Cemetery.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
During the witching hours.
Yes.
Oh my
okay.
gosh.
That's our next episode. All right. But yeah, I think, like I said at the beginning, this is all about trying to bring the fun back into the paranormal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we get deep in our conversations a lot, but it's still fun. Just, I guess the main message today, go out and explore.
Yeah.
Go have fun.
Don't run away if you actually hear a noise, because
Yeah.
that's kind of what you're out there to do.
Yeah.
Have an open mind.
If you ask a ghost to knock and you hear knocking, don't jump and run away from it because they did what you asked.
Exactly.
Just don't be afraid all the time, because I know that these shows a lot promote fear, and fear does drive energy up, but you can have caution while still having fun with the paranormal.
Absolutely.
Right.
So embrace it, because that's what we do here. We always embrace the paranormal and the unknown.
Yeah.
So.
There we go. Well, that's going to be it for us. Like, subscribe, notification bell, as Anthony mentioned earlier, and we will be back very soon with another fun paranormal-y topic.
Hashtag paranormal, guys.
There you go.
And remember, don't fear the unknown.